I'm looking at the threat intel portal, okay? And I want to explain kind of what we have here just to show you. So the featured articles are things that RiskIQ is featuring this week, and this is going to change over time. And very soon it's going to be like a daily thing. And this is where the emails, you might get an email to say, hey, here's a new thing that RiskIQ is talking about. Eventually, we're going to be able to look at your organization from your digital footprint and say, this article really pertains to you because you have these vulnerabilities in your environment and this threat actor is targeting them. Eventually, we'll get there, okay? But if we take a look here, I'm going to look at an ATP one. This is one that we just put out. There was people targeting and doing COVID stuff, okay? So if we look at this open source intelligence, there's an article. So I'm going to open this up in another tab, okay? So there's a real article that was published, and inside here are a bunch of indicators. So as I scroll down, there's all these things that are hashes, IP addresses, YAR rules for detection and helping you. So all these things are here. So what RiskIQ did was sometimes those are in a picture. Sometimes they're ability that you can copy and paste. But talking to threat analysts and people doing threat hunting, we found out that people would read this and say, I was asked, does this pertain to my organization? Are we affected by this? Do we have anybody that's going here? And they would have to type all those in. So it'd take an hour or two for them to go and copy and paste and do it. So what we did was we created community indicators. And this is everything that was in the published open source intelligence. So from inside of here, I can right click and open another tab and immediately run that indicator and see that data, just like I would do, like I normally do with an open source intelligence article. And that's in the free, that's for everybody, that's community. So whether you have the free email or you have the corporate free email, you can see that. But if you have the paid one, what we did is one step further. We know that everybody wants to look at that and say, is there anything new? Is there anything else that we should be worried about? So if we look, we have these enterprise indicators, and these enterprise indicators now are all the additional indicators that RiskIQ found from reading the article, looking at all the reference material, and expanding the investigation, looking at our data sets automatically. So immediately now I have all of these new indicators that I didn't know before that were published. So what I can do is I can now leverage this information immediately inside of CrowdStrike. And the way I can do that is I can come up here and I go to download indicators, and I can download this as a CSV. So if I download it and I open it now, I'm going to just show you that. And then I'm going to go back to Brendan, and Brendan's going to show with his cool PowerShell script that I'm in love with some cool things. So now I can look and I can see all of the community and the enterprise indicators right away. So they're the type, it's a hash, here are the IP addresses, and then you'll see some domains and some additional, some organization names and the certificates. All that information is available, okay? So you can download it, and now Brendan's gonna take this CSV and use it to bring in his indicators inside of CrowdStrike. So I'm gonna go back to Brendan, and then he's gonna show both the other one and this one once it triggered. So here we go, I'm gonna make presenter.
So like Ben just mentioned, the CSV that I actually downloaded is the enterprise indicators one. So there's a little bit lower number of indicators that I'm going to be importing, but I've downloaded that CSV already. You can see that it's sitting in my little home directory here. And I'm just going to go through and do the exact same thing, right? I do get artifacts, but instead of specifying a project ID, I can do the CSV. So I'm going to do that get artifacts and CSV, and then I'm going to point to that passive total article, and it'll do the same thing, right? It can tell that there's an article number that's associated with that CSV. It looks through it, it finds the IPs, the hashes, and the domains, and then it creates that CSV export. So I've got, you know, the indicators that are all listed here, just like we saw with the other one. But instead of having the project ID associated with it, I've got that RiskIQ article, and it'll be imported within my account. And then, you know, I can look at those IOCs by doing a call to the API and see the ones that I've already added, or again, I can get those detections that are generated in my environment. So so here's this mailer daemon.live. This is one that was on the APT 29 article that we just downloaded. So I've got it right there. So in the time that I imported that CSV, which was less than 2 minutes ago, it imported those IOCs, and it went back through and saw that I had reached out to that domain, and it generated a detection based on that. So I've got the activity that's there, and then I've got, you know, those notes saying it was a retrospective detection, right? It went through and it found that history of me pinging that domain, and shows me all the information around that here in the detection. So if this was, you know, actual malicious activity, that this device was reaching out to that domain, I would see it within that context. But in this case, you know, I was just pinging it. So it's a pretty simple detection that was generated, but you can see how once you get those IOCs in there, it'll go back through and look for those and pop those up in your console right away.
For more information about RiskIQ products and services, email success@riskiq.com.